Hello, Mooncrafters. Welcome. This is Craft of Moon. My name's Ryan, and I'm recording in Oaxaca, Mexico today as I reflect on the upcoming full moon in Aries, which, as many of you know, is being called a supermoon. And I just wanted to reflect on what this means to be a supermoon. The supermoon is when the moon is in its closest position to Earth when it is in its full moon phase. And what that means is, if we were to look on our astrology charts in our software, or whether we're drawing them or calculating them by hand, just opposite to the moon, or relatively opposite to it, very close to being opposite, is the what we call the apogee of the moon. And on our charts, this might be represented by an icon which would be labeled the black moon. What is the black moon? And why is, when the full moon opposite the black moon, why is it a supermoon? Well, the black moon is a point in space which represents the second foci point for the orbit of the moon around the Earth. It is where the apogee of the moon is at, or when the Earth and the moon are in alignment with the black moon, the moon is at its apogee, or it's at its farthest point away from Earth. And so the opposite point of that is its perigee, where the moon is closest to Earth. And this is when the moon is going to be seen as the biggest and as the brightest. This is what we call a supermoon. And what does that mean for us, for this to be a supermoon in Aries with the moon opposite the black moon in Libra? Well, we can look at the black moon as the signification of the moon in its most feral form, its most wild, its most spontaneous, its most uncontrolled, unidentifiable form. This is where the moon cannot receive any identity, because it is at its most primal. It's at its most, it's where the moon has its least amount of ego impression. If we think of the moon being in aspect to, or in relation to, other planets or the Earth itself, the apogee of the moon represents that place where the moon is in its least contained. And so what does that mean for us as we reflect upon how we approach this full supermoon in Aries? We can see that the oppositional nature of the moon relative to the black moon is something that signifies the nature of Saturn. Saturn is the planet that governs the oppositional aspect, and Saturn is the planet that represents both walls and windows. Walls and windows is how we think of Saturn. Saturn is the planet of boundaries, and what comes with boundaries are the doorways and the windows and the gateways that pass through those boundaries. Saturn is in Capricorn at its most defined and boundaried, and the ruler of Aries in its most transparent and fluid. And so Saturn representing walls and windows, we can think of this oppositional moment of the moon relative to the black moon as a time when we reflect on what we see through the window of the relationship from Aries to Libra. And this is the axis of self and other. And so looking at that, we can see the current position of the moon and the black moon relative to each other for this supermoon as the expression of Aries being the ego imposer, that which wants to create identity. What do we want as our identity? How do we want to be identified in the world? And Libra representing how we want to be in relationship to others. And with the black moon in Libra, it's representing a space of uncontained, wild, inspiration and spontaneity as it relates to others. And I can relate how that might be interpreted for one's natal chart by using my own chart as an example. I have the moon and black moon nearly conjoined in the sign of Aquarius in my natal chart. And what this means is that I may be subject to the condition of wanting to always remove ego identity from myself, from being constrained by ego identity, not wanting to be identified as this gender, this race, this religion, this sexual orientation, this career, this hobby, this skill, not wanting to have those forming my identity, wanting to shed those identities as a natural habitual pattern. And with this full moon in opposition to Libra, and thinking about the conditions of balance and looking through the window of Libra, I might think about how I might, instead of diving into the habitual patterns of trying to tear off identity, what identities might serve me well for this upcoming period. I can think about those and reflect upon those. Aries is in my 5th house, and so I might think about those kinds of ego identities that I might want to keep and hold on to for just a little while, relating to my 5th house topics of creativity, of children, of lovers, of those things that bring joy and satisfaction to me, those Venusian things. How can they be embodied, and how can those identity constraints be retained for just a little while in order to keep this balance of equilibrium that I'm seeing through the current lens of the moon in Aries opposite the black moon in Libra. So this is kind of a way that we can take our natal chart and look through the current supermoon and see how the moon in Aries opposite the black moon in Libra might be interpreted for our own charts. So take a look at where the moon is in your chart, where the black moon is in your chart. Understand the relationship dynamic that is going on between those two objects, those 2 points, and then take that relationship in your natal chart into the current moment of time and understand where they fit in your house placement. So we're going to be going over a lot of the details of this in future videos, understanding what the black moon is, both in terms of its mathematics, its metaphor, and its philosophy, all the other lunar points that are related to the moon. We'll be diving into those in future videos, so please stay tuned. You can subscribe to this channel, stay up to date on the playlist for Craft of Moon to get all the lunar videos that are going to be released in this channel, and I'll be diving into the specifics of those later. But at least for this moment in time, just sitting back and reflecting on how the moon in Aries opposite Libra with the black moon there, how we can think about that as relative to our natal chart and our current position and what we're trying to get through and the challenges that we're trying to face right now. We can think of it in terms of this identity and the windows into this spontaneity relative to others, how we can embrace that or refine it relative to what's going on in our natal chart. So again, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in staying up to date. I'm looking forward to more videos in the future. I do have more videos in the series that I've started on the 4 lunation points. I'm going to be posting those in the upcoming weeks. I came on holiday here to Mexico, so I wasn't able to record those videos, but I'm going to be recording those and getting those out pretty soon. And in the meantime, looking forward to connecting with y'all in the future. You can find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook, subscribe to the Craft of Moon, and in the comments below you're going to find a link to the mailing list, the link to my other social media sites. My son Jasper makes the music for these videos. You're going to be able to see a link to his YouTube here in the video description below. Please feel free to reach out in the comments and let me know anything that you're liking or disliking or would like to see changed in the future for future videos and topics. And until next time, keep your eye on the sky and make a wish upon a star.